R&B singer R.Kelly has been convicted on 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of sex trafficking. Prosecutors alleged Kelly of grooming young women and minors and luring them into unwanted, sadistic sexual relationships. He could face decades in prison. CBS News national correspondent Jericka Duncan has the latest on the case.
The verdict came swiftly for R&B singer R.Kelly after weeks of sexually explicit testimony. The 54-year-old was found guilty on all sexual abuse counts for racketeering and sex trafficking violations. It took the jury of 7 men and 5 women around 9 hours to reach a verdict. One spectator could be heard weeping as it was read. Acting U.S. Attorney Jacqueline Casoulis.
No matter how long it takes, the long arm of the law will catch up with you.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
For decades, the 3-time Grammy winner topped the charts with mega hits. But allegations of sexual abuse kept mounting, some of them seen here in this 2019 documentary, Surviving R. Kelly. Weeks after its release, he was arrested on charges of sexual abuse. He denied the accusations.
I didn't do this stuff. This is not me. I'm fighting for my life.
At one point, forcefully defending himself to CBS's Gayle King in an exclusive interview.
Robert.
The prosecution called 45 witnesses, including 11 accusers, 6 of whom testified they were underage when Kelly began having sexual encounters with them. Prosecutors argued that Kelly ran a criminal enterprise, using his fame, money, and power to control and sexually abuse his victims. Victims like the late R&B singer Aaliyah, who was allegedly around 13 years old when it began. Lizette Martinez, known as Jane Doe No. 9, says she was underage when R. Kelly forced her to engage in sexual acts.
If you could just describe for me how you're feeling after hearing the news.
I'm feeling extremely happy, relieved. I'm so proud of the women who were able to speak their truth.
Kelly did not take the stand, but jurors heard the testimonies of 5 defense witnesses.
Kelly is scheduled to be sentenced in May of next year and possibly faces decades behind bars. Ed, when I asked one of the attorneys on Kelly's legal team if there were plans to appeal this case, he said, quote, there will be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking on this one. And remember, Kelly still faces a federal trial in Chicago.
Jericka Duncan, who's covered it all. Thank you. For more, let's bring in criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Vinoo Varghese. Vinoo, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Sure.
So jury deliberations went on for about 9 hours total, fairly swift for a trial of this magnitude. Was this the outcome that you expected?
There was no other outcome that I could see based upon the charging in this case, the negative publicity, the missteps by lawyers, and R. Kelly himself in all of this. So there was nothing but bad things that were going to happen for R. Kelly as a result of this verdict.
Do we have a sense why we didn't hear from R. Kelly during the trial?
Well, look, he has the absolute right to remain silent, right? That's in the Constitution of the United States. In a case like this, it wouldn't make any sense for him to testify. The key was to attack the prosecution case and challenge it. And unfortunately, it was a tall order for the defense.
You've defended a bunch of high-profile clients before. Where does this case compare to those? And your opinion, I mean, obviously everyone's entitled to a free trial, but do high-profile defendants like R. Kelly get a fair shake given all the pretrial publicity, or is it nearly impossible for them to get a fair trial?
I think the Bill Cosby case is one that was case in point of that somebody like, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein. I mean, Harvey Weinstein's case is yet to be decided on appeal. But, Bill Cosby's case shows that he didn't get a fair trial. He had a deal, he had something in place with the prosecutors, and, he wasn't given a fair shake. And, he's out, he's free. So, R. Kelly did not, I think it's incredible to use a statute this way to prosecute mobsters. And for the most part, you don't see that many criminal RICO trials anymore. You see these cases brought on the civil side to go after certain types of organizations. So I think it's difficult, and unfortunately for him, he didn't have the resources. His personal fortune was pretty much gone. So, he didn't have the resources to fight this case the way that he needed to.
So, as I understand it, you actually met R.Kelly in prison before his trial began. Explain to us why you were there. And secondly, what do you believe is next, given that there's another federal trial for him coming up in Chicago?
Well, I met with him in 2019 in the Chicago MDC. And that's the federal holdings area. And this was before I don't recall if it was exactly before the Brooklyn case came out. Or actually, the Brooklyn case, I met with him there in Chicago, and it was there to potentially screen me as an attorney. He didn't have the resources to hire me or my firm, and I knew he was meeting with a bunch of people. When I first met with him, he was locked down like an animal. I mean, I can tell you, I've been in a number of prisons. I've been in prisons actually in other countries to meet with people here who are being extradited back to the United States. I'd never seen anybody who was treated like the animal that R.Kelly was in the Chicago MDC. He was put in the shoe. It's the first time I've had to meet somebody who was in handcuffs. We were within a stone's throw away. I mean, from an interstate serial killer and who looked like Hannibal Lecter. It was something else. I had personally never experienced it. I've been practicing at the time, hitting my 20th year of practice. It was extraordinary. He didn't need to be in that kind of situation for what he was charged with, being this close to a serial killer or alleged serial killer, let me be clear. But that's how he was treated. And it took him months to get out of that solitary and into general population. And I met with him a second time after that, and he had been broken. He wasn't the same person. I actually questioned his mental fitness. And I think that's something that needed to be looked into. Ultimately, he didn't have the resources to hire me, but I was concerned about him as a person. I can't really tell you what we discussed, but what I can tell you is my impressions of him. And he wasn't all there.
Vinoo Varghese, we appreciate you joining us to talk about the R.Kelly case. Obviously, it's not over yet, but we'll continue to track it. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.